the main focus. So how do you, during that time, do you still build like a personal brand? Like should I have a vlog? I know you talk a lot about making a vlog, and I know you guys talk a lot about building up your own content. Is that something that I should be doing, even though I don't know what's the exact direction I want to go?
Yeah, so I'll let Ryan answer from his perspective because it's going to be an interesting one. You know, as long as you're hearing me loud and clear when I talk about documenting versus creating, the thing that I'm so worried about in this whole personal brand thing is it gets real ugly real fast because people lie, right? Because you start faking it till you make it and you start fronting. And the reason I'm so happy that I had that meeting with that kid and it caught some wind and gave me clarity around this documenting versus creating, like I was a very different guy in a lot of ways when I was 22, 23 starting Wine Library, but in a lot of ways I was a super similar guy, right, Eric? And so like I couldn't speak to a lot of the accomplishments I had because I hadn't achieved them yet, but fuck man, I had plenty of bravado and it was fun. It would have been fun to be able to call those shots back in the day. It would have been cool to see that meeting that Eric and I had with David Karp at Tumblr, you know, in our office. Like, you know, I guess it's funny that what Ryan was saying right before he called, my big thing is the truth, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can build your personal brand, AKA your reputation. You can hack with creating content. I'm just worried that people, when they think personal brand, start calling themselves like the 7-figure expert, or like, I feel like everybody turns into WWF and has to become a character, not their actual person. So yeah, I'm a fan of it because I think it leads to opportunity. I think like it's a living, breathing resume at scale that has huge upside, one piece of content away from changing your life, as long as you're patient and realize nobody gives a fuck for the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how interesting you are and what you're producing. And it has a lot of people, I mean, the most of the market is producing stuff that nobody wants to watch. Ryan? Yeah,
so I'll tell a quick story. In the late 1920s, 1930s, Winston Churchill is basically driven from political life in Britain, right? He'd worked his way all the way up to the top, one of the most important people in Britain, and he's driven out from politics. He still holds a small office, but he's driven out. And what does he do? He turns to radio and writing articles. He writes hundreds of articles. He gives international radio broadcasts. He's actually at this time more famous in America than he is in his home country. He writes books. He writes this epic series about the First World War and about the history of the English language and all these things. And he builds a huge platform.
He becomes a media company himself.
Basically, yes. Yeah. And he's publishing in Ladies' Home Journal in the United States and everywhere and anywhere that will take him. And he builds up.
And he reverse engineers the content for the context of the place?
Yes, about he becomes a famous person who has a platform. And so he begins to warn about the threat of Nazism and Hitler, which people in the British leadership was ignoring. And so finally, when they woke up and they realized we've been appeasing Hitler for all this time and we've not been taking this seriously, and they said, and the people wanted the person to replace them to solve this problem that they'd avoided for so long, Winston Churchill was the name on everyone's lips, right? And he had the world's ear to communicate that message. And so it's never too late or too early to start building your platform, and you have to do it.
You know, Ryan just much more articulately explained the way I talk about being historically correct. The big reason I have so much passion right now of documenting everything I'm doing is because historically I've been right about a lot of stuff, and those are missed opportunities for me. And I've been wrong. Eric remembers when I thought video email would rule the world, but I like being wrong too. You know, to me, what was refined at 41-year-old Gary that 25-year-old Gary didn't have is I try not to predict as much. What Winston Churchill didn't make up, he wasn't Nostradamus. He wasn't like a man named Hitler is gonna come. Like, he wasn't doing that weird thing.
Right.
He was just watching and social commentating in real time. That's what I've evolved into. Instead of predicting that video email is gonna win, I just recognize that voice is working, yes, that podcast consumption is on. It's just being first, faster, and making a bet in the early indicators instead of guessing. And so I think that's what you're speaking to.
And going directly to the people, building an audience. You know, people think like, oh, when I have my company or I write my book or I make my YouTube channel or start my podcast, that's what will get me the audience.
It's so crazy. I don't give a shit what Drake has to say now. I would watch every minute of the 3 years before he became Drake. All of it. I would consume all of it. Show me the day before it happened. And then you realize it's not a day. The biggest reason I'm doing DailyVee is because, guys, YouTube, it's not a day before. It's the whole thing. It's just a volume of work that shows you it wasn't a moment. It was the whole fucking thing, the whole process. And so, no, man, I don't think it's too early as long as you're not full of shit. And so as long as your content is, I'm not sure what I'm doing yet, or today I ate a banana, or it's really cool today that, like, everybody in this room and everybody watching right now and everybody on YouTube could have gave their 2 cents the day Instagram copied all of Snapchat's features a year ago. It would just be fun to see what everybody thought. How did they feel? How did your mind change? Like, that's just interesting fodder. And if you find out that eventually you're right at social commentating, to Ryan's point, you're the name on everybody's lips.
Yeah, and I would say also your point about documenting. My friend Austin Kleon, he's a great writer and artist. He says, you know, you can't. It's not a. Too many people want to be the noun without doing the verb, right? So you got to do the work. It's about showing the work that you're doing, not talking about what that work's got you. Or I hate fake it till you make it. It's not. No, you shouldn't have to fake it till you make it. You should be showing yourself making it, right? That's interesting.
You know, and then you have a huge audience like me. I prefer the climb, not the finish line. I don't like the world championship. I am disgusted when the Yankees and Rangers finally win and focus completely on the Jets. Like, I'm thrilled. You don't understand how excited I am for this shit season. I cannot wait to go there every Sunday and get our faces beaten in because I want to sit there lonely because it's going to be a half-empty stadium, and I'm going to watch and I'm going to look at everybody's fucking face, and I'm going to look, and then 5, 7, 9 years later when those seats are filled with new faces, I'm going to be like, you weren't fucking here. But Rick was. And I love that process. And I think way too many people want to be the thing and not realizing the thing that attracts us to each other is the vulnerabilities and the humility and the process, not the end result. As a matter of fact, if you think about hip hop, do you know why I love hip hop? Once you're a star, you're only writing about how you got there. Like, what are you even talking about? All you're ever talking, like, notice what comes out of my mouth. The first time, everybody who's a fan of mine does not watch the first 9 minutes of any of my keynotes because I have to drill home. I was born in fucking Belarus. There was a studio apartment. There's a fucking lemonade stand. There's baseball cards. Like, everybody knows it because it's my favorite part. And people don't realize you're so lucky that you now live in a world. Fuck, man, if I had this, Ryan. You know how fucking awesome this would have been? Making videos in my dorm room at fucking Mount Ida College with all these fucking losers around me and me just making videos like, I know it looks bad now, but it's gonna get fucking unbelievable. Like, you know, like, and that's it. And so, like, I love it. Javon, I hope we're answering. I mean, I think we're nerding out with each other a little bit. I think we forgot you're here, but I hope this is bringing you. I hope this is bringing you value and kind of the essence and energy that we're bringing to the conversation. And
you gotta love that. No. You gotta love that process, right? You gotta love it more. Like, when I have a book come out, the day almost. On my last 4 books, when the day the book came out, I was working on the next one because there's pleasure in me sitting there with the page and moving things around and watching the Amazon rank or the reviews. All that makes me uncomfortable and it's out of my control. The work is always in my control. I can make it good. I can't make people do anything.
Yeah, and so for me, like, it's so interesting. Like, I get super excited when I have an idea for a book. And then, because I don't actually write, I have a ghostwriter, I have a different process. Yeah. For me, as you can imagine, opening, like, when I start selling it, which is usually 3 months before it comes out, and then opening day, like, to me, that's what I get excited about. Right. I secretly think I can make people do what I, no, but I mean, no. I'm joking, but I'm
Nick Saban wins a national championship. He celebrates on the field, and he walks into the locker room, and he's thinking about next season. And I get it. I get it too.
I hate winning. I really do. I don't think people realize how much I mean that. I like the process over everything, and that's
what made you good at the process. It's an adaptive mechanism, right? Because you love the process. That's where you spend all your time and energy, and it feels comfortable, and you're at home in it. And the winning, even if you're winning a lot, winning is rare, right? Like, even if you're winning all the time, it's every couple months, every couple weeks. But every day, I'm sitting down on my computer, I have my routine and my ritual. Yep. So that's what I love.
Javon, what did you get out of this?
Are you talking to me?
It's a quiz, man.
Yeah, what did you get out of this little rant?
So what I'm getting out of it is that while you're building, even if you don't know exactly what is the business endeavor, entrepreneurial endeavor that you're going to build, you can document your own personal journey of finding that as long as you're being honest about everything, you're not spitting out bullshit and just the fake it till you make it, and just really like, hey, I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. We're trying this right now to see if this works and if this is a model that we can really get behind. If I'm working with somebody or myself that I'm really interested in, that's what I'm pushing. And then once you build that, then I would start building, like, you know, maybe that the company would get on social media.
Javon, that's exactly right in a lot of ways. And just how many views do you think, if there was video of Zucks launching Facebook that day and the conversation that him and those 4 or 5 homies had in their dorm room of like what they, like, how many views do you think that would have? Like, I mean, like quadrillions, bro. Fuck millions. Like, you know, like, and so that to me is super interesting. And I think that that's what your generation and all you characters have, and don't waste it because you're going to be really pissed you didn't document it.
Can I say one thing about platform?
You can say 2 things.
All right. So, 2009, I decided I wanted to be a writer. My first book didn't come out for 3-4 years after that. And I knew writers have email lists, right? That's how you tell people you're launching a book. But why would anyone subscribe to an email list from a person they've never heard of, right? And so I thought, how do I get people who like books on an email list? And so I said, I'm going to recommend books that I like. And my first email went out to 50 people. It was so small I could just copy them into the BCC. Yes, and then
that's how Wine Library's entire email list was for years.
And then you find, oh wait, Gmail caps it at a certain number. It's like
that
500.
was devastating.
Then I had to open or
create
block
multiple.
you from your account.
I was creating multiple.
So then I opened like a MailChimp account or something, and I'm at ConvertKit now. But that list is now 85,000 people. And the way I monetize, I just recommend 1 email a month, just books. And I've monetized it because I've sent 6 emails to that list of my own, where the book I'm announcing that month is my own book.
Right.
And so
one of the months when you recommend books
Here's a good book.
Here's a good book. I like the guy who wrote this.
Yeah. And it'll be funny because people will go like, I had no idea you were, they've been subscribed for years, and they'll be like, I had no idea you were a writer. I have a great idea for your January 30th, 2018 recommended book. It's called Crushing It. It's a follow-up to a book that did very well. We'll talk about it later. Done. And no. Definitely not done, because one thing, you know what's funny about you? And this is, it's so fun. I don't meet a lot of people that I have common friends with and knew by reputation, but met them kind of late. Like, it's funny that it took a while for us to cross paths. The level of, I know it's not done because it makes me so happy for you. It's called respect, that if you don't like it, it's not done, even though we may like each other. It's that's why, true. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend a shitty book. That's right. Yeah. It's why, if you notice, the 5 or 6 times I've ever given a quote to somebody's book, it never says anything about the book because I don't have time to read it, and I don't read and I can't read. That's right. It says Amy's wonderful, right? It says that. It will never say like, this book made me think. That's a good hack though. If you're ever writing a book and you're asking for blurbs, ask them to blurb you, because you can use the blurb for more than just your book. It's true. Amy is wonderful. Works on everything. Jay, thanks so much for calling, brother. Good luck. By the way, thanks so much. I remember.